The axe blade caught the afternoon sun as it bit into the woodpile, and Nalan Irvin had just reached for another log when he heard the commotion down the road that would change everything he thought he knew about courage and love. A woman's cry rang out, sharp and pained, followed by a man's angry voice cursing in words that made Nalan's jaw tighten. He straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, and turned toward the sound. His farmstead sat at the edge of Thornwall, a rough frontier settlement where tensions ran high and tempers ran hotter. The road that passed his property connected the human villages to the borderlands, where orc tribes had been pushed back after decades of war. An uneasy truce held, but old hatreds died hard. The cry came again, and Nalan moved without thinking. He walked to the road, his work boots kicking up dust, and stopped when he saw them. A young orc woman stumbled along the rutted path, her arm gripped tightly by a broad-shouldered human man in merchant's clothes. Her green skin showed darker bruises on her wrist where he held her, and her other hand clutched at his fingers, trying to pry them loose. She wore simple traveling clothes, torn at the shoulder, and her dark hair had come loose from its braid. Small tusks curved from her lower jaw, and her pointed ears pressed flat against her head in what Nalan recognized as fear. "I said move faster," the man snarled, yanking her forward so hard she nearly fell. "Should have known better than to hire orc scum to carry supplies. Worthless, lazy creatures, all of you." The woman tried to plant her feet, but he dragged her another step. "I carried everything you paid for," she said, her voice hoarse but defiant. "Every crate, every barrel. You have no right." "I have every right," the man cut her off. "You're on human lands now, green skin. You follow human rules, and I say you're coming with me until I'm satisfied you have not stolen from my cargo." Nalan's hands curled into fists. He knew this type of man, had seen them in the army during the border wars. Men who used old prejudices as an excuse for cruelty, who saw anyone different as something less than human. He had fought beside men like that, and he had hated every moment of it. It was why he had left the military life behind and bought this struggling farm on the frontier, hoping for peace and simplicity. Peace, it seemed, had other plans. The merchant dragged the orc woman past Nalan's property line, and she stumbled again, crying out as her knee hit a stone. That sound broke something loose in Nalan's chest. He walked forward, each step deliberate, and when he reached his woodpile, he set down the axe he had been carrying with a heavy thunk that made both the merchant and the woman look his way. "Try that again," Nalan said quietly. The merchant stopped, his grip still tight on the orc woman's arm. He was taller than Nalan by a few inches, heavier through the shoulders, with a florid face and cold eyes. "This is none of your concern, farmer. Keep to your dirt and your plow." Nalan did not move. "That woman said she fulfilled her contract. You have no legal right to detain her, and you certainly do not have the right to manhandle her on a public road. So I will say it once more. Let her go, or try that again and see what happens." The merchant's face darkened. "You are defending an orc. Have you lost your mind? These creatures killed our people for generations. They are barely civilized, and this one probably did steal from me. They all thieve when given the chance." "Then take your complaint to the magistrate in town," Nalan said. "Present your evidence and let the law handle it. But you do not get to drag anyone by force down this road, not while I am standing here." The orc woman stared at Nalan with wide amber eyes, confusion and wariness mingling in her expression. She had clearly not expected any human to intervene. Her gaze flicked between him and the merchant, and Nalan saw her tense, as if preparing to fight or flee the moment an opportunity arose. The merchant laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "Fine. You want to be a hero for the greenskins. Let us see how that works for you." He shoved the orc woman toward Nalan, releasing her arm with a final cruel twist that made her gasp. She stumbled, and Nalan moved forward instinctively, catching her elbow to steady her before she fell. Her skin was warm under his hand, and he felt the strength in her arm, the taut muscle of someone who worked hard for their living. She pulled away from him immediately, stepping back with that same wary look, and Nalan let her go without resistance. The merchant pointed at them both. "You will regret this, farmer. When she robs you blind or cuts your throat in the night, remember that I warned you. Orcs cannot be trusted. They are monsters wearing a human shape, and anyone fool enough to forget that deserves what they get." He turned and stalked away, his boots heavy on the packed earth, and Nalan watched until he disappeared around the bend before he let out a long breath. Then he turned to the orc woman, who stood a few paces away, rubbing her bruised wrist and watching him with an expression he could not quite read. "Are you all right?" Nalan asked. She did not answer immediately. Her gaze swept over him, taking in his worn work clothes, the calluses on his hands, the lines around his eyes that spoke of too many years spent squinting into the sun. Finally, she nodded once, sharp and guarded. "I am fine. Thank you for intervening, but I do not need charity." "I did not offer charity," Nalan said. "I stopped a man from assaulting someone on a public road. That is common decency, not charity." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Common decency is not so common where your kind and mine are concerned." "Maybe not," Nalan admitted, "but it should be." They stood in silence for a moment, the afternoon heat pressing down around them. A crow called from somewhere in the fields, and the wind rustled through the tall grass at the edge of the road. The orc woman shifted her weight, grimacing, and Nalan saw her favor her right leg where she had hit the stone. "You are hurt," he said. "It is nothing." But even as she spoke, she tested the leg and winced. Nalan gestured toward his farmhouse, a sturdy but weathered structure set back from the road with a well and a small barn behind it. "I have water and bandages inside. Let me at least clean that scrape before you go on your way. It is a long walk to the borderlands, and an infection will make it longer." Suspicion flashed across her face. "Why would you help me?" "Because you are injured and I can help," Nalan said simply. "You do not have to accept, but the offer stands." She studied him for a long moment, and Nalan held still under that scrutiny, letting her see that he meant no threat. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied something, because she finally gave a curt nod. "Water and bandages. Then I go. Fair enough." Nalan led the way to his house, walking slowly so she could keep pace without having to hurry on her injured leg. He could feel her presence behind him, alert and tense, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. It made something ache in his chest, that automatic expectation of betrayal, and he wondered what her life had been like to make her so wary of a simple kindness. Inside, the house was cool and dim after the brightness outside. Nalan kept it tidy out of habit, and the main room held a table, chairs, a fireplace, and shelves lined with supplies and books. He gestured to a chair. "Sit. I will get the water." The orc woman lowered herself into the chair carefully, her eyes never leaving him as he moved to the pump in the corner and filled a basin. He found clean cloth and a jar of salve his neighbor had given him last winter, good for cuts and scrapes, and brought everything to the table. "May I?" he asked, nodding at her leg. She hesitated, then pulled up the torn edge of her trousers to reveal a nasty scrape on her knee, bleeding sluggishly and already swelling. Nalan wet the cloth and cleaned the wound with gentle hands, aware of how close he was kneeling to her, aware of her stillness and the way she watched his every movement. "My name is Nalan," he said quietly as he worked. "Nalan Irvin. I own this farm such as it is." "Karga," she said after a pause. No family name. Orcs do not use them. Karga, he repeated, liking the sound of it. That man called you a thief. I am guessing that was not true. She gave a bitter laugh. I carried his goods from the trading post to Thornwall. Every crate, every barrel, just as we agreed. But when we arrived, he claimed one crate was lighter than it should have been and accused me of stealing. He refused to pay me and said he would take me to the magistrate. I told him to weigh the crate in front of witnesses, but he would not. He just wanted an excuse not to pay an orc worker. Anger simmered in Nalan's gut. That is theft on his part. You should report him. To whom? Karga asked, and her voice held no bitterness now, only weary resignation. The magistrate will believe a human merchant over an orc laborer. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. Nalan could not argue with her. He had seen enough of the world to know she was right. He applied the salve to her knee, his touch careful, and then wrapped it with clean bandaging. There. That should hold until it starts to heal. Change the bandage daily if you can and keep it clean. Thank you, Karga said, and this time the words held genuine warmth. She stood, testing her leg, and nodded in satisfaction. I should go. The borderlands are still half a day's walk, and I want to be home before dark. Wait. Nalan stood as well. You walked all the way from the trading post carrying cargo, got assaulted, and now you are going to walk another half day on an injured leg with no payment for your work. Karga's expression hardened. What other choice do I have? Nalan thought fast. His farm was struggling, true, but not because he lacked work that needed doing. He simply could not afford to hire help, not with the prices he got for his crops and the cost of supplies. But looking at this proud, strong woman who had been treated so unjustly, an idea formed. Stay, he said. Work for me for a season. I can pay you fairly, provide room and board, and you can save your earnings instead of spending them on the road. When the season ends, you will have enough money to see you through the winter, and maybe more. Karga stared at him as if he had sprouted a second head. You want to hire an orc. You, a human farmer on the edge of a human settlement. I want to hire a worker, Nalan corrected. Someone strong and capable who is not afraid of hard labor. You carried cargo for a living, so I am guessing you fit that description. What I do not want is to let you walk away injured and penniless when I could offer an alternative. Your neighbors will hate you, Karga said bluntly. They will call you an orc lover and worse. They may even drive you out. Let them try, Nalan said. I have dealt with worse than small-minded neighbors, and I do not make my decisions based on what other people think. Karga searched his face, and Nalan saw the moment she began to believe he was serious. Hope flickered in her amber eyes, quickly suppressed, and he realized with a pang how rare it must be for her to receive a genuine offer of employment. Why? She asked finally. Why would you do this? Nalan considered the question. He could say it was because he needed help, which was true. He could say it was because he believed in fairness, which was also true. But the deepest truth was simpler and harder to articulate. Because the war is over, he said quietly. It has been over for 5 years, but people keep fighting it in their hearts. I am tired of fighting. I am tired of hate. If I can offer one person a fair chance, orc or human, then maybe that is a small step toward something better. Maybe not, but I have to try. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. Then Karga nodded just once, and Nalan saw her shoulders relax fractionally. 1 season, she said. I will work for you for 1 season, and then I go back to my people. Those are my terms. Agreed, Nalan said and held out his hand. Karga looked at it, then clasped it firmly. Her grip was strong, her palm rough with calluses that matched his own. They shook, sealing the bargain, and when they let go, Nalan felt as if he had just stepped onto a path he could not see the end of. He showed her to the small barn behind the house, where he had stored hay and tools. One corner had been sectioned off years ago as a possible living space for a hired hand, though he had never been able to afford one. It had a cot, a trunk, and a small window that let in light. Karga looked around and nodded. "This will do," she said. "It is more than I expected. There are blankets in the trunk, and you can take meals with me in the house," Nalan said. "We start at dawn. The work is hard, but I will not ask you to do anything I would not do myself." "I am not afraid of hard work," Karga said, and there was pride in her voice. Nalan left her to settle in and returned to the house, his mind spinning. What had he just done? Hired an orc woman to work his farm in full view of a settlement that already viewed him as an outsider. He had lived here for 3 years, keeping to himself, doing his work, and never making waves. That was about to change. But as he prepared a simple dinner of bread, cheese, and soup, he found he did not regret his choice. The look on Karga's face when that merchant had hurt her, the way she had expected no help from anyone, the weary resignation in her voice, it all reminded him too much of the things he had seen during the war. The casual cruelty that good people allowed, because it was easier than standing up. He had left the army promising himself he would never look away again. Today, he had kept that promise. Karga appeared at the door as the sun began to set, hesitant but clearly drawn by the smell of food. Nalan waved her in and set a bowl of soup in front of her along with a thick slice of bread. She ate with the focused intensity of someone who had not had a good meal in days, and he let her finish before he spoke. "Tell me about yourself," he said. "Where did you come from? What brought you to the trading post?" Karga wiped her mouth and considered the question. "I am from the northern clans, beyond the mountains. My family were farmers before the war, but when the fighting came to our lands, we lost everything. My parents died in a raid. My brother and I survived, but we were cast out by our clan for showing mercy to a wounded human soldier. They said we were traitors to our people, so we came south looking for work, looking for a place where we could exist without choosing sides." "Where is your brother now?" Nalan asked gently. Pain flashed across Karga's face. "Dead. 2 years ago, fever took him. Since then, I have been alone, moving from place to place, taking whatever jobs I could find. Most humans would not hire me, and the few who did paid less than they would pay a human worker. But it was enough to survive. Barely." "I am sorry," Nalan said and meant it. Karga shrugged, but he saw the tightness around her eyes. "We all lose people. You have lost people too, I think. I see it in the way you carry yourself." Nalan nodded slowly. "I was a soldier during the war, lost friends, lost my faith in the cause. Came home to find my parents had passed while I was gone. Bought this farm with my service pay and tried to build something that mattered. Some days I think I am succeeding. Other days I am not so sure." "At least you are trying," Karga said. "That is more than most do." They fell into a comfortable silence, finishing their meal. When Karga rose to leave, Nalan stopped her. "We will start with the south field tomorrow. The wheat needs harvesting before the weather turns. It will be long days, but manageable if we pace ourselves." "I will be ready," Karga said, and disappeared into the gathering darkness. Nalan cleaned up and sat by the window, watching the stars emerge. The night was quiet except for the usual sounds of crickets and distant animals. But he could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted today, that his life had turned in a direction he had not anticipated. He thought about the way Karga had looked at him when he intervened, the surprise and confusion in her eyes, as if kindness was a foreign language. He thought about her story, about a family torn apart by war and prejudice, about a woman trying to survive in a world that saw her as less than human. And he thought about his own years in the army, the things he had done, the people he had hurt in the name of a cause he no longer believed in. Maybe this was a chance at redemption. Maybe it was just the right thing to do. Either way, he had made his choice and he would see it through. Dawn came early, as it always did on a farm. Nalen was up with the first light, washing and dressing quickly before heading out to start the day's work. He found Karga already awake, standing by the well with her face turned toward the rising sun. She had braided her hair back tightly, and she wore her work clothes with the torn shoulder crudely stitched together. "Good morning," Nalen called. "Ready to work?" Karga turned, and he saw determination in her expression. "Ready." They walked to the south field together, the morning cool and fresh around them. Dew glistened on the wheat, turning the field into a sea of gold and silver, and Nalen felt a familiar satisfaction at the sight. This crop represented months of hard labor, and if they harvested it successfully, he would have enough to sell at market and see himself through the winter with a little left over. He showed Karga how he wanted the wheat cut, using a scythe in long, smooth strokes that left the stalks in neat rows for bundling. She watched carefully, then took a scythe and tried it herself. Her first attempts were awkward, the blade catching or cutting too high, but she learned quickly. By mid-morning she had found her rhythm, and they worked side by side in companionable silence. The sun climbed higher, and the heat built. Nalen called a break around noon, and they sat in the shade of a lone oak tree at the field's edge, sharing water and bread. Karga's face was flushed, her arms dusty with chaff, but she looked satisfied. "This is good work," she said. "Hard but honest, I like it." "It is all I know anymore," Nalen admitted. "The army taught me discipline and how to fight, but it did not teach me how to live. I am learning that here, one season at a time." "You are a good farmer," Karga said. "Your fields are well tended, your fences are strong, you care about what you do. That is rare. Coming from someone who has traveled as much as you have, I will take that as high praise," Nalen said, smiling. They returned to work, and the afternoon passed in a blur of motion and effort. By the time the sun began to set, they had cleared a significant portion of the field, and Nalen's back ached in the way that meant good work done. They walked back to the house together, both too tired for much conversation, and Nalen prepared another simple meal while Karga washed up at the well. Over dinner, she asked him about his time in the army, and he found himself telling her things he had never spoken aloud before. About the fear and confusion of battle, the way orders often made no sense, the arbitrary cruelty of officers who saw soldiers as disposable. About the times he had been forced to fight orcs and had looked into their eyes and seen the same fear and desperation he felt. "I stopped believing in the war the day I killed a young orc fighter who could not have been more than 16, Nalen said quietly. "He was guarding a supply route, just a kid with a spear, and my unit ambushed him. I was the one who struck the killing blow. I can still see his face, the way he looked at me as he died, not with hate, just with sadness, as if he understood how pointless it all was." Karga reached across the table and touched his hand briefly, a gesture of comfort. "The war destroyed both our peoples. Humans and orcs alike lost so much, and for what? Lines on a map, pride. I do not think anyone even remembers why it started." "No," Nalen agreed, "but we all remember how it ended, with graves and grief on both sides." They sat in the gathering darkness, two people from opposite sides of a conflict that had defined their lives, finding unexpected common ground. When Karga finally rose to leave, she paused at the door. "Thank you," she said, "for the work and for listening. It has been a long time since anyone treated me like a person instead of a thing." "You are a person, Karga," Nalen said firmly. "Never doubt that." She gave him a rare smile, small but genuine, and disappeared into the night. The days fell into a pattern after that. They rose with the sun, worked the fields until noon, rested during the worst heat, and then worked until evening. The wheat harvest took 2 weeks of steady effort, but they brought it in without loss. Nalan taught Karga how to bundle and store the grain properly, and she proved to be a quick study with a good eye for detail. As they worked, they talked. Nalan learned about orc culture, about the clan structures and the traditions that governed their lives. Karga told him about the foods her mother used to cook, about festivals celebrated under the full moon, about the songs her brother had sung. In turn, Nalan shared his own memories of growing up on his parents' small farm, of learning to read from his mother and learning to work from his father, of the simple joys of a life lived close to the land. The people of Thornwall noticed, of course. Nalan went into town one morning for supplies and felt the weight of stares and whispers. The blacksmith refused to sell to him, muttering about orc lovers. The general store owner served him, but with barely concealed hostility. Only old Marcus, who ran the feed store, treated him the same as always. "You are making enemies, Nalan," Marcus said quietly as he loaded sacks of seed into Nalan's wagon. "People are talking. They say you have an orc living on your property." "I have a worker living on my property," Nalan corrected. "A good worker who does honest labor for honest pay." Marcus shook his head. "I am not saying they are right, but you should watch yourself. There are men in this town who fought in the war who lost family to orcs. They see this as a betrayal." "Then they are fools," Nalan said flatly. "The war is over. If they want to keep fighting it, that is their business. But I will not turn away someone who needs help just because of old prejudices." "You always were stubborn," Marcus said, but there was a hint of admiration in his voice. "Just be careful. Not everyone is content to whisper." Nalan thanked him and drove the wagon home, troubled by the conversation. He had expected resistance, but the depth of hostility surprised him. Still, he would not change his mind. Karga deserved the chance he had given her, and he would not take it away because of pressure from narrow-minded neighbors. That night, as they ate dinner, he told Karga about the reception he had received in town. Her expression darkened. "I should leave," she said. "I am causing problems for you." "This is not worth the trouble." "No," Nalan said firmly. "You are not causing anything. Their prejudice is the problem, not you, and I will not let them bully me into breaking my word. We had an agreement. One season. I intend to honor that, and I expect you to do the same." Karga looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Nalan Irvin." "Maybe both," Nalan admitted with a wry smile, "but I have never been good at doing what people expect of me." The tension in Thornwall continued to simmer, but no one approached the farm directly, and Nalan hoped that would be the end of it. He and Karga moved on to other tasks as summer shifted toward autumn. They repaired fences, cleared brush from the back fields, and prepared the soil for winter wheat. The work was hard but satisfying, and Nalan found himself looking forward to each day in a way he had not in years. He also found himself noticing things about Karga that had nothing to do with her work ethic. The way she hummed softly to herself when she thought no one was listening. Old orc songs in a minor key that sounded like the wind over mountains. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking, her tusks catching the light. The way she smiled, rare but radiant when it came, transforming her whole face. He told himself it was just appreciation for a good friend and coworker. He told himself that anything else would be complicated and inappropriate. But he could not quite silence the voice in his head that whispered he was lying to himself. One evening in late summer, a storm rolled in fast and fierce. Nalan and Karga barely made it back to the house before the rain started, a torrential downpour that turned the world gray and loud. They stood in the doorway, breathless and laughing at their narrow escape, and Nalan felt something shift in his chest at the sight of Karga's joy. "Come inside," he said. "No point in you running back to the barn in this. You will be soaked before you get halfway there." Karga hesitated, then nodded. They moved into the main room and Nalan lit the lanterns while Karga stood by the fire, warming her hands. The storm raged outside, rain hammering on the roof, wind rattling the shutters. "I love storms," Karga said suddenly. "In my homeland, we believed storms were the gods dancing. My mother used to take us outside during the lightning and we would dance too, matching the rhythm of the thunder." "That sounds dangerous," Nalan said, amused. "It was," Karga agreed, "but it was also beautiful. Feeling that power, that energy, it made you feel alive." Nalan watched her face in the firelight, the way her eyes reflected the flames, and he felt a pull so strong it took his breath away. He looked away quickly, busying himself with preparing tea, trying to ignore the rapid beating of his heart. They sat by the fire, drinking tea and listening to the storm, and the conversation drifted to deeper things. Karga asked him if he ever regretted leaving the army, and Nalan considered the question carefully. "No," he said finally. "I regret some of the things I did while I was there. But leaving, that was the best decision I ever made. I was losing myself, becoming someone I did not recognize, someone hard and cold. The farm gave me a chance to find myself again." "Did you?" Karga asked. "Find yourself?" "I think so," Nalan said. "Or at least I am getting closer. What about you? Do you regret being cast out by your clan?" Pain flickered across Karga's face, but she answered honestly. "Sometimes. I miss the sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than myself. But I do not regret saving that soldier. He was wounded, dying. We could have walked away, but my brother said it did not matter who he was, only that he needed help. We got him to a human healer, and last we heard, he survived. I would make the same choice again." "You and your brother sound like good people," Nalan said softly. "We tried to be," Karga said. "In a world that did not always reward it." The storm eased eventually, fading to a gentle rain, and Karga rose to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back at him. "Thank you for tonight, for the company. It is easy to feel alone even when you are not. You make that feeling less." "You do the same for me," Nalan said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. After she left, he sat by the dying fire for a long time, thinking about her words and his own feelings. He was falling for her. There was no point in denying it anymore. But what could he do about it? She was orc, he was human. She had agreed to one season, and then she would return to her people. Even if she felt the same way, which he had no reason to believe, what future could they have? Society would reject them. Her people might reject her again. His neighbors already hated him for simply employing her. But despite all the logical reasons why he should push these feelings aside, he found he could not. Karga had become essential to him in ways that went far beyond her help on the farm. She challenged him, comforted him, made him laugh, and made him think. When she was near, the world felt brighter, more full of possibility. When she was gone, even for the night, he missed her. He was in love with her, and he had no idea what to do about it. Autumn arrived in earnest, painting the trees in shades of gold and crimson. The work on the farm shifted to preparing for winter, and Nalan and Karga spent long days cutting wood, preserving food, and reinforcing the barn and fences. The season Nalan had promised was drawing to a close, and he felt the weight of it like a stone in his chest. One afternoon, as they stacked firewood behind the house, Nalan worked up the courage to ask the question that had been haunting him. "When the season ends, where will you go?" Karga paused, a log in her hands, and did not look at him. "Back to the borderlands, I suppose. Try to find work, or maybe join another clan if any will have me. Why do you ask?" Because I do not want you to go, Nalan said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Stay. Not as a seasonal worker, but as a partner. Help me run this farm. We work well together, and I. He trailed off, suddenly unsure how much to reveal. Karga set down the log and turned to face him, her expression unreadable. And you what? Nalan took a breath and decided to risk everything. And I have come to care for you, deeply. More than I should, probably, given all the reasons why this is impossible, but I cannot pretend anymore. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I value your opinions, your strength, your kindness. You have become the best part of my days, and the thought of you leaving is unbearable. Silence stretched between them, and Nalan's heart hammered in his chest. He had laid himself bare, and now all he could do was wait. You care for me, Karga repeated slowly. A human cares for an orc. I care for you, Nalan corrected. It has nothing to do with what you are and everything to do with who you are. Karga's eyes glistened, and she turned away, her shoulders tense. You do not know what you are saying. If I stayed, if we— She cut herself off and shook her head. The people in town already hate you for hiring me. What do you think they would do if you took me as a partner? They would drive you out, destroy your farm, maybe worse. I would not bring that down on you. Let them try, Nalan said fiercely. I have faced worse than an angry mob. And I would rather stand beside you and fight than spend the rest of my life safe and alone, wondering what might have been. You are a fool, Karga said, but her voice cracked. Maybe, Nalan agreed. He stepped closer, close enough to see the unshed tears in her eyes, close enough to reach out and gently touch her hand. But I am a fool who is in love with you, Karga, and if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then we owe it to ourselves to try. She looked down at their joined hands, his pale skin against her green, and a tear slipped down her cheek. I do, she whispered. I feel it too. I tried not to. I told myself it was gratitude or friendship or anything else, but I cannot lie anymore. I love you, Nalan. I love your kindness, your strength, your ridiculous stubbornness. I love the way you see me as a person, not a monster. I love the life we have built here, the rhythm of our days, the ease between us. But I am afraid. I am so afraid of what loving you will cost us both. Nalan raised his other hand to cup her face, his thumb brushing away her tear. Then we will face that cost together. We will find a way to make this work, no matter what it takes, because you are worth it, Karga. We are worth it. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing, and when she opened them again, they were filled with a fragile, beautiful hope. Together, she repeated, promise me. If we do this, we face everything together, no matter what comes. I promise, Nalan said, and he meant it with his whole heart. Karga smiled, that rare, radiant smile that transformed her face, and then she kissed him. It was tentative at first, soft and searching, but it deepened quickly into something fierce and tender all at once. Nalan wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, and felt something in his soul settle into place, as if he had been searching his whole life for this moment, this person, this feeling of absolute rightness. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Karga laughed softly. I suppose this means I am staying, if you will have me, Nalan said. Not just as an employer, but as a partner in every sense. I want to build a life with you, Karga. A real life, here on this farm. I want to wake up beside you and work beside you and grow old beside you. I know it will not be easy, but I also know it will be worth it. Yes, Karga said simply. Yes to all of it. They stood there in the autumn afternoon, holding each other, and Nalan felt a joy so profound it was almost painful. He had found something he had not even known he was looking for, something rare and precious and real. And he would fight with everything he had to keep it. But even as they celebrated their newfound understanding, Nalan knew the hard part was just beginning. Loving each other was one thing. Convincing the world to let them love in peace was quite another. The first test came sooner than he expected. 2 days after their confession, Nalan went into town again for supplies. He walked into the general store with his head high, determined not to let anyone's opinion sway him. But the moment he entered, the conversation died. Men and women turned to stare at him with open hostility, and the store owner, a gruff man named Brent, crossed his arms. "Heard you are keeping an orc on your property," Brent said coldly. "Not just working her, but living with her. That true?" Nalan met his gaze steadily. "Karga is my partner. We are running the farm together. And before you ask, yes, we are together in every sense of the word. If that is a problem for you, say so now." A ripple of shock and anger moved through the store. One man, a scar-faced veteran named Garrett, stepped forward. "That is disgusting. You bring shame on all of us, consorting with an orc. Have you forgotten what they did during the war, how many of our people they killed?" "Have you forgotten what we did?" Nalan shot back. "I was there, Garrett. I fought just like you, and I saw atrocities on both sides. The war was wrong, and clinging to that hate will only poison us further. Karga is not responsible for what happened any more than I am. She is a good person who deserves a chance at happiness, and I love her." "Love," Garrett spat. "You do not love that creature. You have just been alone too long, and it has made you crazy. We should burn your farm down and drive that abomination back to whatever hole it crawled out of." Nalan's hands clenched into fists, but he kept his voice level. "If you come to my property with violence in mind, you will regret it. I am not some helpless farmer. I know how to fight, and I will defend what is mine. That includes Karga." "Then you are a traitor," another man said, "and we do not abide traitors in Thornwall." "Fine," Nalan said. "Then I will take my business elsewhere. I do not need your supplies, and I certainly do not need your approval." He turned and walked out, his heart pounding with anger and adrenaline. But as he climbed onto his wagon and drove away, he felt a grim satisfaction. He had drawn his line in the sand. Now everyone knew where he stood. When he returned home and told Karga what had happened, she grew quiet, her expression troubled. "This is what I feared," she said. "They will not let us be." "Maybe I should." "No," Nalan interrupted. "You are not leaving. We knew this would not be easy. But I am not backing down, and neither are you. We will find another town to buy supplies from. We will weather their anger. And eventually, they will either accept us or leave us alone." "You are so certain," Karga said, but there was doubt in her voice. "I am certain that I would rather face 1,000 hostile neighbors than lose you," Nalan said firmly. "We will get through this, together." Karga nodded slowly, and Nalan pulled her into his arms, holding her close. They stood like that for a long time, drawing strength from each other, and he silently vowed that he would protect her and their life together, no matter what it took. The next few weeks were tense. True to his word, Nalan began traveling to a larger town 2 hours away to buy supplies. It was inconvenient and expensive, but the merchants there did not know him or care about his personal life. He and Karga continued working the farm, preparing for winter, and slowly, the overt hostility from Thornwall seemed to fade into a cold, watchful silence. But Nalan could feel the pressure building, like a storm gathering on the horizon. He knew it was only a matter of time before something broke. The breaking point came on a cold night in late autumn. Nalan woke to the sound of shouting and the smell of smoke. He bolted upright, his heart racing, and ran to the window. Torches flickered in the darkness, and he saw a group of men approaching the house, at least a dozen of them, armed with clubs and farm tools. "Karga," he shouted, pulling on his boots and grabbing the rifle he kept by the door. "Wake up." "We have trouble." Karga appeared moments later, her eyes wide. She had heard the commotion and grabbed a heavy staff from the barn. Together, they moved to the front door and Nalin threw it open, leveling his rifle at the approaching mob. "That is far enough," he called out. "This is my property. Turn around and leave before someone gets hurt." Garrett stepped forward from the crowd, his scarred face twisted with anger. "We are done tolerating your perversion, Irvin. You have brought shame on this community and we are here to correct that. Send the orc out and maybe we will let you live." "Go to hell," Nalin said flatly. "Karga stays, and if you take one more step I will start shooting." "One man cannot stop us all," Garrett said. "And we will not leave until that creature is gone, one way or another." Nalin's mind raced. He could shoot one, maybe two, but they would overrun him quickly. He and Karga were outnumbered and outmatched, but he would not give her up. He would die first. "Nalin," Karga said quietly beside him. "Let me go, I will leave. You can rebuild your life here without me." "No," Nalin said fiercely. "I told you, we face this together." Before either could say more, a new voice cut through the night. "What in the blazes is going on here?" Old Marcus pushed through the crowd, leaning heavily on his cane, his weathered face thunderous with anger. "Have you all lost your minds? You are about to commit murder over what? A man's choice of who to love. Have we learned nothing from the war?" "Stay out of this, old man," Garrett growled. "This does not concern you. It concerns all of us," Marcus shot back. "Because if we let this happen, if we turn into a mob that burns and kills over petty prejudice, then we are no better than the worst atrocities committed during the war. I fought in that war, just like you, Garrett. I lost a son to it. And I will be damned if I let his sacrifice be for nothing by watching this community tear itself apart." "She is an orc," another man said. "They are animals, monsters." "She is a person," Marcus said, his voice hard as iron. "A person who has worked honestly, harmed no one, and earned a chance at a life. Nalin has offered her that chance, and he has every right to do so. And if you proceed with this madness, I will stand with him. Shoot me first if you must." The old man moved to stand beside Nalin and Karga, his cane planted firmly in the ground, his expression daring anyone to challenge him. For a moment, the mob hesitated, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. Then another figure stepped forward. It was a woman Nalin recognized from town, a widow named Elaine who ran a small bakery. "Marcus is right," she said quietly. "This is wrong. I have seen what hatred does. It destroys everything it touches. If we do this, we lose ourselves." One by one, others in the crowd began to lower their weapons, shame and doubt crossing their faces. Garrett looked around, his fury faltering as he realized he was losing control of the mob. Finally, with a curse, he spat on the ground and turned away. "This is not over," he said. "But we will not make martyrs of you tonight." The crowd dispersed slowly, the torches fading into the distance, and Nalin sagged with relief. Karga gripped his arm, her hand trembling, and he pulled her close. "Thank you," Nalin said to Marcus and Elaine. "You may have just saved our lives." Marcus waved a hand. "I just spoke the truth. People around here needed to hear it. But this is not the end, Nalin. You and Karga need to be careful. Garrett is a proud man, and he does not like being humiliated." "We will be careful," Nalin promised. Elaine stepped forward and looked at Karga directly. "I am sorry for the way you have been treated. It is not right, and I hope you know that not everyone in Thornwall shares those views." Karga nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." After Marcus and Elaine left, Nalin and Karga returned to the house, both too shaken to sleep. They sat by the fire, holding each other, and Nalin felt the full weight of what they had just faced. "I thought we were going to die," Karga whispered. "So did I," Nalin admitted. "But we did not." And Marcus was right. This is not over, but we survived tonight. We will survive whatever comes next. "I do not want you to die for me," Karga said, her voice breaking. I do not want you to suffer because of what I am. Nalan turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. Listen to me. You are not a burden. You are not a curse. You are the woman I love, and I would face 1,000 mobs for the chance to build a life with you. Do not ever think otherwise. Tears streamed down Karga's face, and she buried her head against his chest. I love you so much it terrifies me. I know, Nalan murmured. I feel the same way, but love is worth the terror. It is worth everything. They held each other through the night, finding comfort and strength in their closeness, and when dawn came, they rose to face the new day together. The weeks that followed were quieter, but the tension never fully dissipated. Nalan and Karga kept to themselves, working the farm and avoiding town as much as possible. But the encounter with the mob had changed something fundamental. They were no longer just facing prejudice and whispers. They were facing the possibility of real violence, and it hung over them like a shadow. Yet despite the fear, something beautiful was growing between them. They talked for hours by the fire each night, sharing stories and dreams, learning each other's fears and hopes. Nalan taught Karga to read, painstakingly working through simple texts until she could make out the words on her own. Karga taught Nalan songs from her homeland, her voice low and haunting in the winter darkness. They worked side by side each day, their movements synchronized, their understanding deepening. And each night they fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, finding peace in a world that offered them little. Winter settled over the land, cold and harsh. The farm went quiet under a blanket of snow, and Nalan and Karga spent long days tending to the animals, repairing tools and planning for spring. It was a peaceful time, despite everything, and Nalan found himself happier than he had ever been. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Nalan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. He had carved it himself over the past weeks, working late at night while Karga slept, trying to get every detail right. I have something for you, he said. Karga looked up, curious, and he handed her the box. She opened it slowly and her eyes widened. Inside was a simple ring, carved from wood and polished to a soft shine. It was not much, but Nalan had put his heart into every groove and curve. It is a promise, Nalan said quietly. A promise that I am yours and you are mine for as long as we both live. I know we cannot marry in any official sense. No magistrate will perform the ceremony, no church will bless us. But I do not need their approval. I only need you. Will you accept this ring and the promise it represents? Karga stared at the ring, her eyes filling with tears. Then she looked up at him and her smile was brilliant and fierce. Yes, she said. Yes, Nalan, I will be yours and you will be mine forever. She slipped the ring onto her finger, and Nalan pulled her into a kiss that was tender and passionate and full of every emotion he could not put into words. When they finally pulled apart, Karga laughed through her tears. You carved this yourself. I did, Nalan admitted. It is not gold or silver, but it is perfect, Karga interrupted. It is more precious than any metal because it came from your hands and your heart. I will treasure it always. They spent the rest of the night celebrating in their own quiet way, and Nalan felt a deep, abiding peace. Whatever the world thought, whatever obstacles they faced, he and Karga belonged to each other now. Nothing could change that. Winter gave way to spring, and with the thaw came new challenges. Nalan and Karga planted the fields, repaired winter damage, and prepared for the growing season. But Nalan also noticed that Karga had grown quieter, more pensive. She would stand at the edge of the property, staring toward the distant mountains, and he knew she was thinking of her homeland. One evening he asked her about it directly. Do you regret staying? Do you miss your people? Karga considered the question carefully. I miss the idea of belonging somewhere, she said, of having a community that accepts me, but I do not regret staying. You are my home now, Nalan, you and this farm. It is just hard sometimes, knowing that I can never go back, that I am cut off from the world I once knew. What if we could change that? Nalan asked. Karga looked at him, confused. What do you mean? What if we found other people like us? Humans and orcs who want to live in peace, who are tired of the old hatreds. What if we built a community of our own, here on the frontier, where everyone is welcome regardless of who or what they are? Karga's eyes widened. You are talking about building a settlement. That is a massive undertaking. I know, Nalan said. But think about it. There must be others out there, people who have been cast out or ostracized for loving across the divide. If we could find them, bring them together, we could create something truly new. A place where love is valued over prejudice, where hard work and good character matter more than the color of your skin or the shape of your tusks. Karga stared at him, and he saw hope and fear warring in her expression. Do you really think it is possible? I think we have to try, Nalan said. Because if we do not, then what are we fighting for? Just our own survival. That is not enough. We have a chance to be part of something bigger, something that could change lives. I want to take that chance if you are willing. Karga was silent for a long moment, and then she nodded slowly. All right, let us try. Let us build something that matters. They spent the next month spreading the word quietly and carefully. Nalan traveled to other towns and settlements, talking to people he thought might be sympathetic. He found a few humans who had orc friends or loved ones, people who had been shunned for their relationships. He found orcs who had been cast out of their clans for showing mercy or for refusing to fight. One by one, they came to the farm, drawn by the promise of acceptance and community. By midsummer, they had gathered a dozen people, human and orc alike. Nalan and Karga divided their land, helping each family or individual build their own small home. They established basic rules. Everyone worked together, everyone shared resources, and no one was judged for who they loved or where they came from. It was hard work, and there were challenges. Some people struggled to overcome their ingrained prejudices. Others found it difficult to adapt to a community so different from what they had known. But slowly, steadily, the settlement took shape. Fields were planted, homes were built, and friendships formed across the lines that had once divided them. Thornwall watched with suspicion and hostility, but they did not interfere directly. Perhaps they saw that the settlement was too large to attack easily, or perhaps some part of them recognized the futility of their hatred. Either way, Nalan and Karga's community continued to grow. One evening, as they stood on a hill overlooking the settlement, Karga leaned against Nalan and sighed with contentment. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." "We did," Nalan agreed. "And this is just the beginning. Imagine what this place could become in 5 years, in 10. Imagine the children who will grow up here, never knowing the hatred that defined our generation." "It is a beautiful dream," Karga said. "And for the first time, I believe it might come true." Nalan wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, and looked out over the land they had transformed. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played in the fields, and the sound of laughter drifted on the evening breeze. It was not perfect, and there would be more challenges ahead. But it was real, and it was theirs. As summer turned to autumn, the settlement thrived. Crops were harvested, winter stores were laid in, and the community came together to celebrate their first successful season. They held a feast, with food and music from both human and orc traditions, and the mingling of cultures created something entirely new and vibrant. During the feast, old Marcus arrived, leaning heavily on his cane but grinning widely. "I had to see it for myself," he said. "The stories reaching Thornwall are wild. They say you have built a whole town of humans and orcs living together. I did not believe it until now. Come in, Marcus, Nalan said warmly. Join us. You are always welcome here. Marcus stayed through the evening talking with settlers and marveling at what they had built. Before he left, he pulled Nalan aside. You have done something remarkable here, son. Something that might just change the world given time. I am proud to have stood with you when it mattered. Thank you, Marcus, Nalan said, for everything. You gave us a chance when no one else would. You gave yourselves a chance, Marcus corrected. I just reminded people to look past their own noses. The rest was all you. After Marcus left, Nalan found Karga standing at the edge of the gathering, watching the festivities with a soft smile. He joined her and she leaned into him. I never imagined I would have this, she said quietly. A home, a family, a future. You gave me all of that, Nalan. You changed my life in ways I cannot even express. You changed mine too, Nalan said. Before you, I was just going through the motions, surviving but not really living. You taught me what it means to fight for something that matters, to love without reservation, to build instead of destroy. I am a better man because of you. Karga turned to face him, her eyes bright with emotion. Then we made each other better. And we will continue to do so, every day for the rest of our lives. I will hold you to that promise, Nalan said, and kissed her as the stars emerged overhead and the sounds of celebration filled the air. Winter came again, but this time the settlement was prepared. Homes were snug and warm, food was plentiful, and the community pulled together to ensure everyone had what they needed. Nalan and Karga spent the cold months planning for the future, discussing how to expand, how to attract more settlers, how to establish trade with other communities. They also spent time simply being together, enjoying the quiet intimacy of long winter nights. Karga would read aloud from the books Nalan had taught her to decipher, her voice stumbling over difficult words but growing more confident each time. Nalan would whittle by the fire, creating small figures and gifts for the children in the settlement. They talked, they laughed, they made love, and they dreamed. One night as they lay in bed, Karga said, I want to have a child. Nalan propped himself up on one elbow, surprised. You do? I do, Karga said. I want to bring a life into this world we have built, a child who will grow up knowing love and acceptance, who will never have to choose between their heritage and their heart. I want to see what a family of our own looks like. Nalan felt his throat tighten with emotion. I want that too, more than anything. Then let us try, Karga said, smiling. Let us create the future we have been fighting for, and so they did. Spring came with new hope and new life. Karga's pregnancy was confirmed by one of the orc healers in the settlement, and the news spread joy throughout the community. Everyone took pride in the idea that the first child born in their new world would be a symbol of everything they stood for. The pregnancy was not easy. Karga struggled with sickness and fatigue, and there were moments when fear crept in. Fear that something would go wrong, that they would lose this precious hope. But Nalan was by her side every step of the way, holding her when she was sick, encouraging her when she was tired, and loving her through every moment of doubt and pain. As summer arrived and Karga's belly grew round, the settlement prepared for the birth. The orc healer, a wise woman named Grucka, oversaw the preparations, and human and orc women alike offered their support and expertise. It was a communal effort, everyone coming together to ensure the safety of mother and child. On a warm evening in late summer, Karga went into labor. Nalan stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement and trying to hide his own terror. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when he thought he might lose her, when the fear was so overwhelming he could barely breathe. But Karga was strong, stronger than he had ever imagined, And finally, as the sun began to set, a thin, lusty cry filled the air. Grucka lifted the baby, a tiny, perfect being with pale green skin and 10 perfect fingers, and placed the child in Karga's arms. "A son," Grucka said, smiling. "Healthy and strong." Karga looked down at the baby, tears streaming down her face, and Nalan felt his own vision blur with emotion. He reached out and touched the baby's tiny hand, and the infant grasped his finger with surprising strength. "He is beautiful," Nalan whispered. "He is perfect." "He is ours," Karga said, her voice filled with wonder. "Our son. Our future." They named him Aaron, a name that meant hope in the old Orc tongue, and from the moment he was born, he became the heart of the settlement. People came from all over to see the child, to marvel at this living symbol of what they were building. Aaron was loved and protected by the entire community, and Nalan and Karga watched him grow with pride and joy. As Aaron took his first steps, as he spoke his first words, as he laughed and played with the other children in the settlement, Nalan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had found love in the most unexpected place, had built a community from nothing, and had created a family that defied all the old rules and hatreds. One afternoon, as Nalan sat on his porch watching Aaron toddle around the yard with Karga keeping a watchful eye, old Marcus appeared again, walking slowly up the path. Nalan rose to greet him, and Marcus clasped his hand warmly. "I came to see the boy," Marcus said, "and to tell you that things are changing in Thornwall. Slowly, but changing. People see what you have built here, and some are starting to question the old ways. A few families have even asked about joining your settlement." "They are welcome," Nalan said. "Anyone who comes in peace is welcome." Marcus nodded. "I thought you would say that. You have a good heart, Nalan, and you have proven that a different way is possible. I hope I live long enough to see this community flourish." "You will," Nalan said firmly. "You will be here to see Aaron grow up, to see this place become everything we dreamed." Marcus smiled, but there was a weariness in his eyes that spoke of his age. Still, he stayed for a while, playing with Aaron and talking with Karga, and when he left, he did so with a lighter step. The years passed, and the settlement grew into a thriving town. More families arrived, drawn by the promise of acceptance and opportunity. Fields expanded, new homes were built, and trade routes were established with other communities. The old divisions between human and orc began to blur, replaced by a shared identity as citizens of this new place. Nalan and Karga raised Aaron with love and care, teaching him the values that had guided them. He grew into a bright, kind boy who saw the world with fresh eyes, unburdened by the prejudices of the past. He played with human and orc children alike, learning both languages, both cultures, and creating his own identity from the best of both. On Aaron's 10th birthday, the town held a celebration. There were games and music, food and laughter, and as Nalan watched his son race through the crowd, he felt Karga's hand slip into his. "We did it," she said softly. "We built a world where our son can grow up free." "We did," Nalan agreed. "And it is more than I ever dared to hope for." "Do you ever regret it?" Karga asked. "The struggles, the fear, the times when it seemed impossible." Nalan turned to look at her, this woman who had changed his life in every possible way, and shook his head. "Not for a single moment. Every hardship, every challenge, every moment of fear was worth it to stand here with you and watch our son celebrate his birthday in a town we built together. I would do it all again in a heartbeat." Karga smiled, and it was that rare, radiant smile that still took his breath away. "So would I." They stood together, watching the celebration, and Nalan thought about that day so many years ago when he had set down his axe and said, "Try that again," to a cruel merchant. That single moment of courage had led to all of this. A town, a family, a future full of hope. He thought about the young orc woman who had been dragged down the road, frightened and alone, and looked at the confident, beloved leader she had become. He thought about the lonely farmer he had been, searching for meaning, and recognized the fulfilled, happy man he was now. Life was not perfect. There were still challenges, still people who clung to the old hatreds. But here, in this place they had built, love had triumphed over prejudice, and hope had proven stronger than fear. As the sun set and the stars emerged, Nalan pulled Karga close and whispered, "I love you. Today, tomorrow, and for all the days to come." "And I love you," Karga replied, "always and forever." Aaron ran up to them, laughing and breathless, and they scooped him into a hug, the three of them together under the vast, star-filled sky. Around them, the town they had built hummed with life and joy, a testament to what could be achieved when people chose love over hate, courage over fear, and hope over despair. And in that moment, Nalan knew with absolute certainty that he had found his place in the world, not through grand gestures or heroic deeds, but through the simple, profound act of standing up for what was right and opening his heart to love. The story of Nalan and Karga became legend in the years that followed, passed down through generations as a reminder of what courage and love could accomplish. Their town flourished, becoming a beacon of hope in a world still healing from old wounds. And though they faced many more challenges in the years to come, they faced them together, their bond unbreakable, their love eternal. For they had learned the most important truth of all. That home is not a place, but the people we choose to stand beside, the lives we build together, and the love that makes every struggle worthwhile. And they lived, worked, loved, and thrived, creating a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, a testament to the power of choosing compassion over cruelty and love over hate, one brave moment at a time.